Yay.
Hi, my name is Michelle Green. I am an EMT on the ambulance for the last 15 years. I am a training officer and an instructor, and I am here today to teach you about how to stop bleeding. I have my audience here. That's my husband and 7 of my kids. Hello. Okay, so we're going to talk today about how to stop bleeding. But first off, I want to give you some facts about bleeding. Each year, according to the Journal of Emergency Medical Services, they published an article on November 7th of 2013 entitled Stop the Bleeding. And in the article, they had that 5 million people die each year from traumatic injuries. Now, of these 5 million people that die each year, this is according to the National Traumas Institute article called Hemorrhage. 40% of those that die from traumatic injuries each year die from hemorrhaging. So they bleed to death. But then 16% of these deaths are preventable, according to a study by the National Center for Biotechnology Information. And the title of the study was Preventable Deaths from Hemorrhaging. So what does this mean to you? Does this have any effect on your life? Well, 16% doesn't sound like much, but when you take 16% we start out with 5 million from traumatic injury, right? And 40% of that would be 2 million, and 16% of that 2 million would be 320,000 people die every year from bleeding to death, from hemorrhaging. That's preventable. So what this means is that they did not have any other life-threatening injuries. If someone would have simply stopped the bleeding, they would have lived. So the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has a website, and on this website, it's titled Stop the Bleed, and they list 3 ways to stop bleeding. And we're going to learn these today, and we're going to demonstrate them. So first, you apply pressure with your hands. Second, you apply a dressing and pressure. And third, you apply a tourniquet or tourniquets. So those are the 3 ways off the Stop the Bleed website, and we're going to go over each of these. So I need a couple of volunteers. Emma and Katie, you can be next. You can be next. You get to lead. Okay. Okay, so on the first one, Emma fell down the stairs. Get up. Come on, hurry. Emma fell down, and she has a big gash on her arm. Okay? I know we can't see the blood, but she's bleeding really bad. Now here's the steps you need to do, Katie. The first thing you need to do is expose the wound. That means you need to look at it and see where the bleeding is coming from. Secondly, you're going to take your hand, or both hands if you can, here's the cut right here, and you apply firm, steady pressure until the bleeding stops. Pretty easy, huh? That's what you do. Okay, now we need someone else to volunteer.
Me?
Okay, Jacob. Oh, don't. Okay, Jacob's going to do it on Emma. Jacob, a second way to stop the bleeding is you take a bandage or clothing or some kind of a cloth, and you put it over the bleeding. And then you put your hand over top of that, and you apply firm, steady pressure, or with both hands. Like squeeze it with 2 hands. Okay, there you go. That's the second way you can use to stop bleeding. The third way, okay, Soraya and Eliza, can you come help? The third way is a tourniquet. Now this is a commercial tourniquet, and tourniquets kind of have a misconception about how to use them and when to use them. It used to be that we were taught over and over that we only use these as a last resort, but that is not the case. This is according to the Journal of Emergency Medical Services. They published an article called Tourniquet First that says a tourniquet can be applied quickly with minimal personnel and no other equipment. In fact, most modern tourniquets are designed to be self-applied if necessary. So we're going to talk about applying a tourniquet. Like I said, this is a commercial tourniquet, and this is something everyone could have in their home or in their car, in their emergency kit, and they aren't even very expensive. But it's just we're going to have you do it. Eliza has never seen this tourniquet before, actually, for real. Okay, so all you do, yeah, that's exactly it. This is her first time ever even looking at a tourniquet. Let's turn it over just to make ease of applying, though. Okay. So, you just put the Velcro, just like any other Velcro strap, just leave it hanging now. Nope, 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 you can't cover it up because you need to use that. Then, you open this up, and you slip it out of its notch, and this is why they call it a tourniquet. You literally just turn the post. Nope, one time, we aren't really going to. Okay, and then you just connect it back into the thing. And then you can write on this the time and date. And we'll take that off, we'll release that for Emma. Now, let's pretend, one thing about tourniquets is you need to turn it just until the bleeding stops. You're trying not to damage the tissue around the tourniquet. You want to apply it 2 to 3 inches above the bleeding and turn it just until the bleeding stops. Now, let's pretend that you could not get the bleeding stopped. Let's pretend that couldn't get stopped. You guys can sit down now. If you could not get the bleeding stopped, you would apply a second tourniquet about 2 or 3 inches above this one. Thank you, Emma, but I only have one on me. So tourniquet, like I said, this is something that everyone should have. This is something that now on the ambulance we're taught to use as first. If there's serious bleeding, we just immediately put a tourniquet on. So just to review, the 3 steps of how to stop bleeding are 1, apply pressure with your hands, 2, apply a dressing and firm pressure to the dressing, or 3, apply a tourniquet or tourniquets. And if you just followed these simple steps, you could find that you could save the life of a stranger, a loved one, or even yourself someday.